The question of whether Hinduism promotes violence might seem strange to some, but in recent years the violence of Hindu gangs roaming the streets in India has been getting increasing attention. Reports of minority groups who have been targeted and persecuted by so-called Hindu vigilantes have hit the headlines. The media have latched on to terms such as Hindu terrorism or Hindu fascism and have attempted to paint this as some new form of Hinduism. But what exactly does the religion have to say about violence? Is there any justification for Hindus to form oppressive regimes against innocent individuals? To understand this, let's firstly look back at the ancient Vedas. These texts date back thousands of years and have little to say about individuals performing acts of violence and going out to war. Instead, there are hymns to the various deities of the universe and instructions on how to perform the yajna sacrifice. Part of the Vedic revelation are the Upanishads. They are perhaps the earliest philosophical teachings and arguably the most influential within the Hindu traditions. Far from talking about any kind of violence, they describe the metaphysical relationship between the self and God. Alongside these teachings are the beginnings of yoga philosophy, which is all about stilling the mind and gaining mastery over the senses. These texts form the very bedrock of Hinduism, and we find no message that calls the Hindu to go out and conquer. There is no mandate seeking to create some kind of theocratic state. At no point do the Upanishads call upon Hindus to subjugate others and make them believe in Vedantic truths. Instead, the rishis urge us to find our true identity, that which has and always will be. This foundational aim of walking an inward journey is what defines Hinduism as a whole. This is not to say that violence is completely absent from the Hindu landscape. If we look at their various deities and the narrations of their deeds, we find endless acts of killing and slaughter. Kali, for instance, is depicted as being untamed and wild. She wears skulls, beheads demons, and drinks blood. Lord Narasimha ruthlessly rips apart the demon Hiranyakashipu and pulls out his intestines. To the non-Hindu, these brutal depictions could be seen as promoting aggression and bloodshed. But to the devotee, these deities demonstrate the powerful nature of God that overcomes negativity. In man exists the unprecedented nature of the ego that wants to keep us in unconsciousness. As a result, there is a need to appeal to the unprecedented nature of God to deal with it. The various demons depicted in the Puranic scriptures are embodiments of the various obstacles we carry within. They are the shadow that veils the truth and keeps us in ignorance. The extreme forms and acts of these deities inspire and reaffirm to the devotee the lengths that God will go to re-establish our relationship with Him. Far from evoking a mood of aggression, they strengthen feelings of devotion. Ramakrishna, for instance, was a great bhakti saint who worshipped the ferocious form of Kali intensely. His devotion did not evoke rage, but brought him to the innocence of a child. Today, he is famed as a great devotee who personified the love of God. But perhaps the most relevant scriptures to this debate are the Itihasa, or historical accounts of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. It is here we gain an understanding about what Dharma is. Dharma is not about establishing a particular religion over another, nor is it about forcing through a particular scripture, nor is it even about fighting to promote one god over another. Dharma is a universal principle beyond religious identity. It is about upholding the natural order of the universe and living a righteous path. In the Ramayana, Dharma is clear. Ravana kidnaps Sita, and so naturally Lord Ram enters Lanka with his army, kills Ravana and restores righteousness. The Mahabharata, however, is more complex and describes the subtlety of Dharma. In the first chapter of the Gita, as the great war is about to start, Arjuna sees his friends and family on the opposing side and is overcome with confusion. He asks Krishna, how can it be Dharma to kill your own relatives for the sake of land and a kingdom? Surely it would be better to run away and abandon this terrible situation. But Krishna spends some 17 chapters discoursing on why he should take up his bow and fight. Many might argue that a higher teaching would be to turn the other cheek. Rather than cause bloodshed, we should be aloof and give up the selfish desire for a kingdom. In response, the first point to make is that this war was taken as an absolute last resort. The Pandavas were continually oppressed by their cousins the Kauravas and deceived out of their kingdom. Multiple appeals for peace were tried. Krishna himself came as an ambassador to negotiate an alternative solution. Added to this, the Pandavas made massive compromises and opted to accept just 5 villages instead of their whole kingdom, which they were entitled to. But Duryodhana nonetheless refused to budge. The war on the Kurukshetra battlefield was not to win back a kingdom, it was not done for power or wealth, it was done to protect Dharma. Duryodhana was an evil tyrant who had behaved in the most abominable way. Righteousness was in decline, and so action needed to be taken. As Krishna makes clear, inaction or the avoidance of duty is equally as bad as acting in an unrighteous way. The decision to fight was essential and entirely proportional to the context. Moreover, it was embarked upon only after all options had been exhausted. But when Krishna speaks to Arjuna, he does not advocate war to conquer and establish a particular belief system. He does not make any division between believers and unbelievers. In fact, Krishna's discourse takes Arjuna's mind away from the prospect of violence to the transcendent. Far from bellowing out bloodthirsty cries for war, he discusses the nature of the soul, love for God, and acting without any attachment to the results. This is why the Gita, and in many ways the whole Kurukshetra war that Krishna was a part of, have been spiritually internalized by Hindus. Ultimately, we are fighting with the various inner tendencies that seek to take us away from truth, and it is Krishna who is guiding us to victory. As the Mahabharata and Ramayana show, violence is a necessary but unfortunate part of the human condition. Hinduism does not ignore this, but sets this out as part of Kshatriya Dharma, or the duty of a warrior. Bhishma states in the Mahabharata, "A Kshatriya, O king, should protect the people. Always exerting himself for the destruction of robbers and wicked individuals, he should put forth his prowess in battle." Krishna adds in the Gita that a Kshatriya should be large-hearted in charity and full of strength and bravery. The message is clear that being a Kshatriya is about upholding Dharma and heroically sacrificing oneself to eliminate the wicked and defend the weak. When individuals or communities are under siege, it is the duty of those who are able to take a stand. But despite this need for defensive action, alongside Kshatriya Dharma is ahimsa or non-violence. Throughout the Mahabharata, the phrase ahimsa paramo dharma or ahimsa is the supreme religion is consistently repeated. The implication is that although violence is a tragic necessity in some situations, ahimsa is the goal to be strived for. But while scripture can give instructions, the true test of whether religion promotes violence or not is in the religious figures that are venerated. They are the ones who embody the truth of their tradition. If we look at the whole universe of saints and masters, nowhere do we find a warlord or great conqueror. Nowhere can we pinpoint a persecutor or one who has performed acts of terrorism. These masters were mystics. Instead of engaging in acts of violence, they lived as renunciates, yogis, and servants of humanity. Even in recent history, the most dynamic personalities who created radical change, both spiritually and politically, did so through the power of their message and drastic practices of non-violence. All of them used Hindu scripture, in particular the Gita and Upanishads, as their justification. Hinduism is a religion that has no desire to convert people, nor does it preach an exclusivity of truth. So there is no question of Hinduism justifying the violent subjugation of another. There will always be individuals who are extreme in any movement. They will form perverse interpretations of scripture to justify their actions. There is always a way that the mind can justify the ego's intentions. As Krishna states, the intelligence which is founded in ignorance has a warped understanding of Dharma, and they perceive what is unrighteousness as righteousness, and what is righteousness as unrighteousness. When somebody performs acts of violence against innocent individuals in the name of Hinduism, we should ask what Hindu sources are they using to justify their version of Dharma? Are they drawing on the Upanishads? Are they following Krishna's or Bhishma's teachings? Which messenger or master are they trying to emulate? Abuses against the innocent have no basis in Hinduism and are simply human responses to personal grievances. It is the inward journey to God that defines Hindu Dharma. This is why Hindu society has been the most accommodative and diverse of all societies in the world. Rather than seeking to go out and establish vast empires in the name of God, rather than taking armies across the continent to win land, the Hindus sought to conquer the inner realm and realize something infinitely more valuable than power: the meaning of life. Many thanks for listening.